is extensively binding. Greed breeds. Bleed, come on and bleed. We're twisting the knife so slow that you won't believe the power's real, but you can't feel. So desensitized by lies and stuck in between. Be careful if you're wise. This just might come as a shocking surprise. Who knew all we'd have to do is haggle with the truth? Oh, and here's a free suit. Just say you compromise. We'll swear you in by oath and watch you fight for your life. Decide time has come to make your decision. So don't fight the incision. Take the mark and share our vision. See twisting the knife so slow that you won't believe the power's real, but you can't feel. So desensitized by lies and stuck in between. The power's real. Come on and bleed. We're twisting the knife so slow that you won't believe. Bleed, come on and bleed. We're twisting the knife so slow that you won't believe the power's real, but you can't feel. So desensitized by lies and stuck in between. Our power's real. Bleed, come on and bleed. We're twisting the knife so slow that you won't believe. Our power's real, but you can't feel. So desensitized by lies and stuck in between. Stuck in between.
Hey, welcome to the Missouri Freedom Initiative. It's Saturday night. There we go. There we go. That was Slave to Servant with their hit song, Power, from their album called Singularity. Hey, guys, we're going to bring up the gang here in just a second here, but look at that national debt. $34,239 billion and counting. Gosh darn it, gang. So just when you thought they couldn't spend any more money, they spend more money. And that's just the way it goes. Give us a 5x5 or your favorite gun caliber in the comments section. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're on Twitter, if you're on Rumble, if you're on YouTube. And let me bring up the panel here real quick. There we go. We got the panel with us. We've got Voodoo Queen. We've got Gretchen Garrity. We've got Shane with us. We have, Isaac with us. And we have Tom Martz with us tonight. And we may or may not have other people pop in during this, but gosh darn it, it is really good to see all of you. I want to thank you for joining. I'm going to take a look and see if folks are giving us, I'm suspecting people are hearing us okay, but, hang on. We got a 12.7 by 99. Awesome. Thank you, Gary Ride. That's awesome. Okay, gang. Before we delve into the states and what the states are doing with gold and silver right now, I think Almeria had talked about IP reform in the state of Missouri. And that is a very important issue as well. However, I'm not as well versed in that right now, particularly in the last week. But I do know several things. So I'll tell you what I know so far as the status of IP reform. So this past week, and if anyone wants to jump in, has been watching IP reform real closely, please feel free to do so. But Mary Elizabeth Coleman, she is the senator that's handling SJR 74. As soon as it was brought to the floor, she spoke for a couple of minutes about the importance of IP reform before she introduced a substitute. So, okay, let me frame this for you a little bit differently. Mary Elizabeth Coleman never let House districts even have a minute of debate time on the Senate floor. This has been the problem all along. Now, of course, they're going with a different form of concurrent majority in the substitute, which is referred to as congressional districts. But there's candy in there, and a lot of that candy may not jive. And once again, that gets sticky. And I don't want to get into a big, long diatribe about it, nor do I want to analyze it when I know so little about it, because I've spent my week on gold and silver, gang. So if anyone has any further information on that, because right now what they're doing is she brought out the substitute and then the filibusters from the Democrats began, is my understanding. And that's what we expected. That's why you don't wait until the end of the year to get these big bills done, ever. You don't say, oh, hey, let's go out with a bang in 2024. Let's make IP reform the very last bill we handle on the Senate floor on the last day of the General Assembly 2024 session. No, you never do that. Never, ever, ever. Because there will be a filibuster and it won't get done. It's that simple. But that, of course, is what Cindy O'Loughlin had actually suggested that we do with IP reform. Wait and pass it on the last day, or more specifically, who knows, she said, we may end up hearing that on the floor on the last day of the session. So strange words. But at any rate, and hang on, we're getting 45 by 70. So another 45 by 70, a caliber I was currently last week, not aware of. I have since been made aware of. So thank you very much for that. So that's pretty much all I know about IP reform, unless someone on the panel here or someone in the comments section would like to add something before we move on. And I'm talking specifically about IP reform in the state of Missouri. No one? Okay, fair enough. Okay, because I know very little about it either, so I don't want to get you guys, all worked up on something that I don't even truly understand. I understand IP reform. I don't understand what happened in the last week. That's what I'm getting at. Okay, gang. Is there any other things we should bring up real quick here before we actually start talking about silver and gold across 19 states? Including, of course, Missouri. I'll make Missouri first. Missouri first. That's the way to go. Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll start with Missouri. We have two bills, and you guys are familiar with it, so I'm not going to bring anything up on the screen. And that, of course, is Senator Bill Eigel's SB 735, and we have Representative Hardwick's HB 1955. And that's our silver and gold bill for the state of Missouri. They're kind of companion bills, and they do multiple things. One of which they do is they make silver and gold legal tender. Another thing it does is it suggests that the Treasury has the ability to have, not less than 1% of gold and silver in the Treasury of total reserves. But it also protects Missourians from confiscation. It uses the 10th Amendment to actually make sure that no Missouri resources can be used for a federal confiscation of gold and silver. But that also equally applies to state seizure of gold and silver, with the caveat, due process. If due process has been followed, they can, in fact, take gold and silver, but not without due process. So that's we also give a value to gold and silver, which is, of course, weight, purity, plus the spot price plus the market premium. So the Missouri bill is kind of an entire enchilada. We even suggest we would like to have a depository, but there's no mandates done in our bill because we do have a treasurer that has cold feet with gold and silver, and that's Treasurer Malik. Okay, so that's what's going on in Missouri's bill, and where it's at right now. If those of you get the newsletter, should know that we do have a hearing in the House, and it's on February 27th. That's on a Tuesday. It's at noon. And that's, of course, in the Financial Institutions Committee. That's chaired by Michael O'Donnell, Representative O'Donnell. And so anyone who is going to go and testify, I encourage everyone who wants to come and testify. But if you want to testify, please email me and let me know so we can kind of coordinate. So that would be a great help, I think, especially if we have a lot of people testifying. That way there's not a tremendous amount of overlap. Also, if we have a lot of people testifying, and I encourage that, that's a good thing. If we have 30 people testifying, that would be awesome. But one thing I can guarantee you is they will limit you to 2 minutes per testimony if we have like 30 people show up. If you have, 5, 10 people show up, I don't think they'll do that. But there is a possibility that the representative, Robin Loughlin from Arkansas, will be coming to testify. She's the one who carried the bill in Arkansas that got through in that record 13 days in Arkansas in 2023. She was the House handler of the bill. So at any rate, there is a possibility she will be coming to testify to ours, depending if there's a scheduling conflict or not. And you guys know how it works with, folks in government. There's always conflicts and schedules, but we're going to try and get her here. Other people would like to testify too. But so at any rate, that's the status of our bill. Once again, February 27th, House hearing on HB 1955. So that would be Representative Bill Hardwick's version of the bill. And that's at 12 p.m., high noon at the Missouri Capitol. Okay. So if you guys have any comments or anything you'd like to add before we go any further, and I'll start calling out other states and the bills they have for silver and gold and what they're doing with the bill. And this, by the way, is to date. I don't know if we got every single state, but I think we're real close. And I've been going by, and I'd like to give a huge shout out to the 10th Amendment Center tonight. Mike Mahari writes for the 10th Amendment Center, and he is a big part of the 10th Amendment Center, along with Mike Bolden. And he actually provides this. He goes through Legiscan, so we don't have to. So a big shout out and thank you to the 10th Amendment Center, specifically Mike Mahari, for basically collating all this data in one easy-to-find blog at the 10thamendmentcenter.com. That's where I found the data we're about to go through. Okay, and we'll go as quickly as I can. So let's start with the Idaho bill. I'm going to bring it to the screen here so you guys can see this. And once again, all of these references, all of these links are to the 10th Amendment Center. So the Idaho bill would authorize state gold and silver reserves. Once again, that sounds an awful lot like a depository to me, a depository of sorts. They tried to do this last year, and they didn't have enough support to get the bill through. If you folks know anyone in any of these states we're about to mention tonight, please pass on this information. In Idaho, the bill is actually S 1314. And so that's that's a Senate bill. And at any rate, that's virtually the same bill that they had tried to do last year. And once again, it's because they have huge reserves, they're collecting more money than they need. And they're thinking about actually cutting taxes and putting some of that money into gold and silver, into reserves for the state, rainy day fund. Sounds kind of familiar. I mean, this is what other states are trying to do right now as well. Certainly what Missouri is trying to do. But this right here would be the Idaho bill. And so if you know anyone in Idaho, and I know someone in Idaho, I think phone calls and emails to support this bill would be a very, very good idea. But Idaho is definitely on the right track. Okay, next one, Tennessee. Let's look at the Tennessee bill. Well, why would Tennessee have a bill? They just got a depository in 2023, and they got it through quickly. You know, not as fast as Arkansas. And by the way, I want to mention one more thing. Arkansas and Tennessee, full bipartisan support. Both left and right voted for it. They both love the idea. What are they doing this year? Oh, they're making gold and silver legal tender in the state. So that's what they're going for. And that makes sense. Actually, you would think it would be the other way around. Legal tender first, depository second. But they felt the depository was the most important thing they could get done first in their state. So that would be Senator Nicely. So I do believe Senator Nicely is involved in this operation here, but it is a House bill. House Bill 2804. There we go. Senator Frank Nicely and Senator Randy McNally introduced a companion bill, and that is SB 2737. And so basically under the proposed law, specie would be legal tender in the state and recognized as a medium of exchange for the payment of debt and taxes. So once again, payment of debts as well as taxes. What that means is the same thing we're trying to get done in Missouri, which is actually have the state accept gold and silver if offered by the taxpayer. Not demanded, but if offered. It looks like Tennessee wants to do the same thing. So that leads me to believe that we're on the right track. Okay, gang, let's go on to the next state, which is Arizona. And Arizona already has legal tender law. What are they doing? Arizona's Senate committee passes a bill to establish a bullion depository and transactional gold-backed currency. So they already had legal tender. But what they are doing now is they're going for a depository and basically transactional gold-backed currency. Let's find out what that means. So let's see. The bullion depository would serve as a custodian, guardian, and administrator of certain bullion and specie that may be transferred to or otherwise acquired by the state agency, a political subdivision of another instrumentality of this, whatever. The law proposes, the law specifies, I'm sorry, guys, this is far away from me on this monitor, that this, let's see, here, I'm going to read to myself here real quiet here and get to what the gold-backed currency is. Transactional gold-backed currency. Okay, transactional gold or silver. Okay, under this bill, the director of Arizona Department of Insurance and Financial Institutions would be required to issue specie, gold or silver coins minted by the state. Look at that. Minting of their own state, currency, their own coins, minting. Well, that's what we wanted to do too, but once again, we have a Treasurer Malik, that's got cold feet on this whole deal, so we'll have to hold off on that stuff. Other states are picking up on this idea, and they're running with it. Okay, so once again, let's get our bill numbers, because I spent a lot of time here. So once again, this is for Arizona. The bill number is SB 1633. If you're in Arizona or you know someone in Arizona, that sounds like a great bill to support. And guys, stop me at any point if we need to have a conversation about something. I am not looking at the chats right now, so I can't read anything you guys are typing right now. If there's something important, if someone inside of Gilded can let me know, I'd appreciate it. Okay, Iowa bill. So Iowa is also going for gold and silver. And how are they doing it? Iowa bill would make gold and silver coins legal tender in the state. Well, So they're not going for specie, they're going for coins, and that is 100% constitutional. So it sounds to me like they're on safe ground, and they have a great idea. So this is SF, or Senate bill, and they have an F as opposed to B like we would have here in Missouri, SF 2273. And they also have HF 2229 introduced in the House. And basically, under the proposed law, gold and silver coins issued by the federal government would be legal tender in the state. So that's the way they're going with it. So I think, basically, I think they should go for specie as well. But once again, it's up to the state and what the state wants to do, what the state can get away with politically as well, and get away with is not the right way of saying it, what they feel they can do at the time, at the moment. Okay, so let's move on to Mississippi now. Mississippi would make gold and silver legal tender in the state. And if you guys remember, just last year, Mississippi eliminated sales tax on gold and silver. So they got that done in 2023. Now, in 2024, they have House Bill, or HB 1064. The proposed law would designate specie as legal tender in the state. Specie is defined as a coin having gold or silver content, or refined gold, silver bullion that is coined, stamped, or imprinted with its weight and purity, and valued primarily based on the metal content and not its form. So they're going more for the specie than just coins. So in other words, specie, guys, is basically how you get to language that is conducive to goldbacks, by the way. So Mississippi is moving forward. They have eliminated sales tax on gold and silver. That took effect January 1st of this year. Now they're going for legal tender status for gold and silver. Let's look at our next state, which is Kansas. Okay, in Kansas, and hopefully I'm going to take a look at the feed here and make sure that everything's okay. It's weird to not have any noise going on. It looks like it's okay. I'll take a quick break here and take a look at chats here, see if there's anything I need to take a look at. Let's see. Okay, nothing critical there. Nothing critical there. Hey, let's see, from Louisiana. Well, hey, hang on from Louisiana. We'll see if we got something for you. And nothing in Odyssey as of yet. Okay, guys, I'm going back to Kansas. Okay, the Kansas bill will take steps to treat gold and silver as money. That sounds to me like a legal tender bill. Let's take a quick look. This is House Bill 2729. And it's specie legal tender. Under the proposed law, specie legal tender will be defined as gold or silver coin or bullion, including but not limited to gold or silver coin issued by the United States. Under the proposed law, specie legal tender may not be recognized may be recognized to pay private debts, taxes, fees levied by the state, or political subdivision thereof. Guys, did you hear that? Taxes came up again. See what I'm saying? I mean, actually, people are thinking this is a really good idea. Do you know why? Because if your state accepts gold and silver for payment of taxes, businesses will be much more likely to transact in it. That's the reason why. So it's a simple idea, and it's actually a really good idea. So that would be for Kansas, and once again, that's HB 2729. Okay, let me head back to where I was before. I lost my place. Let's see. I'm going to have to go. Nope. I'm going to exit out of that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have dropped that down, guys, because I have so many windows open right now. Here we go. I found it. Okay, next state is Wisconsin. We have a friend in Wisconsin. We have several friends in Wisconsin. Let's see what Wisconsin's up to. Wisconsin Senate committee passes bill that would take a step towards treating gold and silver as money. Wow. Okay, so that's in Wisconsin. SB 33, or Senate Bill 33, is what it's called. It's knocking down barriers, basically. It's repealing sales taxes on precious metal bullion, and it, let's see, currently 43 steps. I'm sorry, let me go back up here. Let's see, passed a bill that would eliminate sales tax on gold and silver bullion. So basically, Wisconsin committee passed something that would eliminate the sales tax. Remember I was telling you there's 7 states left with sales taxes on gold and silver. Wisconsin just happens to be one of them. So they're actually trying to get rid of that just like they did last year. So that's what it looks like. Let's see. Would create tax exemption from okay. Certified. Okay, so it's not legal tender. It's simply removal of sales tax. But guys, that's incredibly important to get done. If you have sales tax on gold and silver in your state for retail sales, it must go. It has to go. Okay, so we'll move on to the next state. And Wisconsin. And by the way, at the end of this, we're going to talk about ways you can support the bills in your state. Next bill is for Oklahoma, another neighboring state to Minnesota. So what's Oklahoma doing? Because they're always doing cool stuff. Idaho. Let's see. I lost Oklahoma already. Let me bring it back up here. Okay. Oklahoma bill is SB 2030. And this bill would create a working relationship with the Texas Bullion Depository Gang. This is very, very interesting. Rather than, and remember last year, Oklahoma was trying to create a depository, and it failed. I don't know exactly the reason why, if it wasn't enough support, or if they had folks in their General Assembly that just wouldn't let it through, or the governor didn't like it, or the treasurer. I don't know. But what they're looking to do now is actually create a partnership with the Texas Bullion Depository for the state of Oklahoma. That's a big deal, gang. So if you're in Oklahoma, this is Senate Bill 2030. So you guys should jump on that. That way you guys can, actually have something really cool going on here for, basically your state's reserves with gold and silver. Okay, another bill filed by David Bullard. Let's see. SB 1351 would also create a state-run bullion depository in Oklahoma. So they have competing bills. One bill to create a working relationship with Texas and their bullion depository, and the other one is for Oklahoma to create their own depository. So it looks like there might be some competition with legislation within their state. May the best piece of legislation win in Oklahoma. And once again, at the end of this, we'll talk about supporting these bills. Next state is Hawaii. Hawaii is another one that tried to do something last year. Hawaii's bill would take a step towards treating gold and silver as money. Let's see, a bill introduced in Hawaii House would exempt the sale of precious metal bullion from state sales tax. Once again, elimination of sales tax. So we got 2 states out of 7 right now that we know of that are trying to, 7 states in the union that currently have sales tax on gold and silver. Minnesota is one of them too. Minnesota did not come up in the list this year, unfortunately. So at any rate, so this is a very important first step. If you're going to get legal tender for gold and silver, you have to eliminate sales tax. So this must come first. So good luck to Hawaii, and hopefully they get that done. Okay, next step is Georgia. Let's take a look at Georgia and what they're doing. Georgia would take another step towards treating gold and silver as money. A bill filed in the Georgia House would eliminate state capital gains taxes on gold and silver specie. Passage into law would relieve some of the tax burdens on investors. Would also eliminate one barrier to using gold, silver in everyday transactions. A foundational step for people to undermine the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. This bill number it's a House bill, HB 895 in Georgia. So, gang, once again, this is another one that's trying to get rid of taxes, but instead of sales tax, capital gains tax. Why is that? You absolutely cannot have sales tax or capital gains tax on anything that's considered legal tender. So, in other words, taxing it for itself. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. There's a great analogy to help people understand that a little bit better. Why investments in the dollar can be subjected to capital gains, but why you can't do it to gold and silver. We'll talk about that later. So once again, this is a Georgia bill, and this is HB 895. And apparently Representative Jordan Riley and also 5 co-sponsors. So, they're on the right path there. So good deal. Okay, next state, Nebraska. There we go. Another neighboring state to Missouri. Let's see what's going on in Nebraska. Nebraska bill would eliminate capital gains taxes on gold and silver and reject the CDBC. Guys, I have a lot more to say about CDBC. Remind me when we're done covering the states. Okay, in Lincoln, Nebraska, a bill introduced in Nebraska legislature would eliminate state capital gains taxes on the sale of gold and silver bullion. Passage into law would relieve some of the tax burdens, right? This bill number, LB, legislative bill, LB 1305. And so that's the bill they have in Nebraska to eliminate capital gains taxes on gold and silver and also reject the use of CDBC. I'll read it here. LB 1305 also carries a provision that would exclude central bank digital currency from the state definition of money under the state tax code. The impact of this change is unclear, but ostensibly, it would also prohibit the state from accepting tax payments in the form of CDBC to create a roadblock to its implementation in Nebraska. Now, we need to talk about that later on, gang. In this live stream, we need to talk about CDBCs and what you can do legislatively about them, because there is some confusion about it. But once again, Nebraska's bill is removal of capital gains taxes on gold and silver, which has to go, and rejecting CDBCs, LB 1305. The next state on our list is Utah. Utah, you say, Pat. Utah has it all. They have everything. Let's see what they don't have. They're expanding the Specie Legal Tender Act. That's what they're doing. So a bill introduced in the Utah House would further expand and clarify the definition of gold and silver as legal tender in the state. Representative Ken Ivory introduced House Bill 348 on January 19th. Passage into law would set the stage for the people of Utah to further undermine the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. Utah led the way, and that's absolutely true, as Mike Mahari writes. Utah led the way, reestablishing constitutional money by making gold and silver legal tender in 2011. HB 348 would further expand the definition of specie legal tender to include gold or silver coins or bullion not issued by the United States government. It would also clarify that specie legal tender may be used for the issuance or repayment of debt obligations to the state. So they're doing something else too, gang. They're making sure that the state will accept gold and silver for payment of taxes. Once again, a Missouri idea that is catching on all over the country. If you want the businesses in your state to embrace gold and silver, all you have to do is make sure that the state pronounces out loud in front of everybody that they will be accepting gold and silver for the payment of taxes. Let's move on here. Next state is Kentucky. So let's see what Kentucky's got going on here. Let's see. Bill filed in Kentucky, another neighboring state to Missouri, would take a step to treating gold and silver as money. So this is in Frankfort, Kentucky. A bill introduced by the Kentucky Senate would exempt the sale of precious metal bullion from state sales tax. There we go. Another state looking to eliminate sales tax. 3 out of 7 states so far are looking to eliminate the sales tax. We're not even going to get into capital gains when counting these up. Passage into law would relieve some of the tax burdens on investors. Let's see. Senate John Schnickel, I guess, introduced the Senate Bill 105. So the name of this bill is SB 105. It's companion to HB 101, which is in the House side. The legislation would exempt currency and bullion from state sales and use tax. So there we go. Another state looking to eliminate sales tax on gold and silver. Once again, an important first step for legal tender status for gold and silver. Next state. Well, I recovered Missouri, so we're going to Indiana now. Let's see what's shaking in Indiana. Okay, Indiana bill would make gold and silver legal tender and establish a bullion depository. Well, gee whiz. Gee whiz. It's too bad we can't do something like that because all these other states are trying to do it. Let's read on. Representative Shane Lindrar introduced House Bill 1400, HB 1400, on January 11th. Passage would set the stage for the people there to determine or to undermine the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. Species legal tender. So once again, making gold and silver legal tender and establishing a bullion depository. Missouri, are you listening? People in Missouri, are you watching? Now, they're probably not, so I'll make sure to talk about this a little bit when I do my testimony in front of the committee. Okay, let's go on to the next state, because we do have the bill number covered. Once again, Indiana's bill, that's a very exciting bill for Indiana, by the way. If you're in Indiana, jump on it. So that's House Bill 1400. Okay, next state is West Virginia. So let's take a quick look at West Virginia. West Virginia bill would make gold and silver legal tender in the state. Once again, a legal tender bill. So we have Chris Pritt introduced House Bill 4343. And it has, HB 4342 after that. I'm not sure what that's about. But basically, under the proposed law, gold and silver coins issued by the federal government would be deemed as legal tender in the state. Once again, a legal tender bill. So there we go. It's happening again. I believe West Virginia had the same bill last year. Let's look at New Jersey. Okay, New Jersey. To the governor, New Jersey passes bills to remove sales tax from gold and silver, and apparently they're waiting for a governor's signature. I have heard an update on this, and unfortunately the governor vetoed it. So they have to wait for the veto session, but it was passed by more than 2/3 in both the House and the Senate. So they're pretty sure that they can get this past the governor's veto. Can anyone say the governor of New Jersey kind of works for banks? The big banks, the member banks. That's the only reason the governor would actually veto something that the people in the state want and is completely constitutional. So that governor's got a lot of answering to do, if you ask me. 2 more states, gang, and then we'll be done with this part. New Hampshire. Let's take a look at New Hampshire. New Hampshire bill would allow employers to pay employees with gold and silver. So this is from Concord, New Hampshire. A bill filed in the New Hampshire House would set the stage to increase currency competition and potentially undermine the Federal Reserve's monopoly on power by making wages payable in gold and silver in the state. Rep. Michael Granier and 3 co-sponsors filed House Bill HB 1246, and it's been introduced in the 2023 legislative session, but it's also now in the 2024 legislative session. So at any rate, good luck to New Hampshire. I hope you get that across the finish line. That's a very exciting bill. In fact, we actually have that, basically that idea also in SB 735. And let's take a look at Florida now. Florida is the last state we'll look at tonight. Florida bills would treat gold and silver as money. This is a shout out to our friends with the Citizens for Sound Money. And they've been driving this bill here. So let's see. Bills filed in the Florida House and Senate would make gold and silver legal tender in their state, which would increase currency competition and set the stage for the people there to undermine the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money. Representative Doug Bankson and Rep. Chip LaMarca filed House Bill 697. And so at any rate, we also have a Senate bill, which is S750. So that sounds like a companion bill. And the legislation would treat specie legal tender as money in the state. So that's something that needs to get done and get done quickly. So if you're in Florida, I mean, gosh darn it, guys, you should be calling your reps and your senators every day, because your session's coming to an end here pretty quick. So you guys have very little time left to get this done. So, okay, that completes the 19 states, and I did mention Missouri, of course. And I am open to discussion now at this point. Before we go into further discussion, I do want to talk about CDBCs and the possible constitutional problem with fighting CDBCs, but we'll get into that because I'm going to take a breath. Does anyone else want to talk? Anyone? No one? Okay, gotcha. Okay, let me take a look at the comment section. Let's see. Absolutely outstanding regarding New Hampshire. and that comes from Maya. Maya, I couldn't agree more. I really truly hope they get that done, because everything's becoming tough in New Hampshire now. Let's see. Lion Up says, great information. Yes, in fact, in the description section of the video, you should be able to find, let's see if there was one, I couldn't get it done, and it happens to be Rumble. If you check out this video on YouTube, I have all 19 states listed and the links. And I'm sorry, for some reason I could not get that done in Rumble. I think I ran out of word space is what happened, actually. Let's see. B. Hoffner says, it's more important to end the session Tuesday afternoon so they could attend the Chiefs Parade rather than getting IP reform done. Yes, I'm very well aware of that. That is very, very disturbing on so many levels, especially since folks like Caleb Rowden were running around the state, basically during the summer saying IP reform will be the top priority of the Republican Party. And, he's done that for years, gang. He's done that for years, and it never happens, and he doesn't do anything to make it happen, and he's Senate Pro Tem. So, and Plocker, I am not familiar with him running around the state saying that IP reform was a top priority for him, except for after he announced he was running for lieutenant governor. Then he says, for the last 7 years, IP reform has been a top priority for the caucus, and for the last 4 years, it's been a top priority of mine. We didn't know that, Dean. We didn't know it because you didn't tell us this until after you ran for lieutenant governor. That's the problem. You got to tell us these things when they're, when they're actually in the process of happening, and not 4 years after, 4 attempts, and while you're running for a higher office. So that would be my advice to you going forward, Representative Plocker, is from now on, tell us in advance what's important to you, as opposed to 4 years later after you made no attempt to get IP reform done, how important it was to you. When you were in leadership and could make it happen, by the way. Okay, I'll look for comments real quick on Odyssey. No comments there. Let's see if Twitter's got some comments for us going on. Let's see. Why do real solutions get no traction? This is from Colorado is a red state on Twitter. That's a very, very good question. And actually, that's a complicated answer, too. The real solutions get no traction because generally real solutions don't involve money. That's the reason why. I know it sounds like I'm, oversimplifying it, but I think that's actually quite true. I think that's exactly why real solutions never get the traction. So thank you very much for your question, though. It's the first question we've had on Twitter in quite a while. Okay. If anyone wants to say anything, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll go into CDBCs.
Well, I just wanted to say I think it's actually heartening to see so many states that are interested in this.
Oh, yes.
It gives me hope.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I agree with you, Gretchen. I agree. And some of these bills are fantastic. Indiana's bill is very exciting, actually. I really like what New Hampshire is doing. Florida is having to back off from their depository and just go for legal tender status at this point because of some weird problem over there. But let's see. And then also having 3 out of the 7 states that still have sales tax on gold and silver working to get rid of that. That's pretty cool. Where some folks may think that that's a small deal, that's a big deal. Go ahead, Gretchen.
No, I just agree with you completely that, it seems like a lot of this stuff can seem overwhelming, that we're just being overwhelmed by the inability to get control of our government. But this, I think, is a really big deal. I'm really glad that you're involved in it. And I think it's so important.
You bet. I do too. Thank you for that. And if anyone has that's listening to this right now that lives in Missouri has never testified before in a committee hearing, it is really easy to do. It's really quick, easy to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of your time to get it done. And it's so important to the process for citizens to actually come up and testify. Now, what we will do in the next email that we get, what we'll do is when there is a gosh darn it, what do they call those things again? The written testimonies. They actually have a name for them, and for some reason I've totally forgot it right now. And it's right on the House website. If you can't make it for a testimony, I would strongly recommend doing a written testimony right on the House website. If you can't make it, or if you don't want to speak. And those are incredibly important as well. Gang, we're fighting a battle here to get this done. They're slow walking gold and silver. I mean, this is pretty obvious to me, but what is the purpose of slow walking it, and have we run out of time? I don't know why they're slow walking it, but we still have plenty of time to get this bill done. But at the same time, we want it to, get through that process of the hearing and get to the Rules Committee, get out of Rules Committee, and be thrown on the calendar. That's what we want, so we can hear it on the House floor. You remember how much fun that was last year, especially for those of us in the gallery having to listen to Peter Meredith go on and on and on about Nazi gold, right? But hopefully that won't happen this year, because they can't play the same trick 2 times in a row. And if they did, I think there would be a revolt in the Republican Party, honestly. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about CDBCs, because actually while I was doing my research to see how many states were doing gold and silver legislation, and by the way, I am not digging through Legiscan. Guys, there may be states that were missed already, and I wouldn't know that because I'm not going through Legiscan, and that process is very time consuming. So let me explain it. You go to legiscan.com and you put in the state, and then you put in keywords for searches for the House and keywords for searches in their state Senate. And so gold and silver would be obvious ones. But at any rate, that's what Mike Mahari does with the 10th Amendment Center. He does it so we don't have to. And I say it all the time publicly. I'm very happy that he does that. I'm very appreciative. And I was going to say, although it has nothing to do with our group, but I am a member of the 10th Amendment Center. And it's because I appreciate their work. They make my work easier. So I could borrow from Mike's stuff anytime I want, just like I did tonight, Mike Mahari's stuff, and bring it to you guys in a way that actually makes more sense, because his is sporadic throughout their blog. So that's the only time it took for me. But while I was doing that, looking for silver and gold bills, I saw a lot of anti-CDBC bills being done by states across this union. And we're talking a lot of anti-CDBC. So I'm thinking there's at least 20 states with anti-CDBC legislation. So the easy question for me to ask is that constitutional? The reason I ask that is because the federal government gets to determine what's legal tender for the states, right? So keeping that in mind, if the federal government says that a CDBC is legal tender and we will accept it, you pretty much have to at that point, because it's within their constitutional responsibilities for the federal government to determine this. And it's in the original Constitution that gold and silver are legal tender, are money in the United States of America. All 50 states should be accepting that. The only thing that really turned over that apple cart was literally the inclusion of the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve note. Because although we had paper representations, we had gold and silver certificates. It's the Federal Reserve, along with FDR, making gold illegal, and then the gold certificates went away. And then, of course, in 1964, we lost silver, and that was Johnson who demonetized silver, oddly enough, about a month after Kennedy died. And so then there were no silver certificates anymore, and also silver wasn't being put in the change anymore. So what gives that the federal government could actually make a call like that without amending the Constitution? Well, the Federal Reserve Act is associated, basically with the income tax. And so they figured that the Federal Reserve Act being attached to this, the Federal Reserve Act is a living, breathing document that can keep on changing. But I don't think that applies here, because we don't have anything that has amended the Constitution directly that says gold and silver is not money. So let's go back to CDBCs. If the federal government says CDBCs are money, just like for some reason Federal Reserve notes, which in my mind never was done properly, but everyone accepts it. What I submit to you is everyone will accept CDBCs if the federal government says, once again, it is legal tender. And I'm not saying that you'll be using it. I'm just saying you won't be fighting it. The purpose of gold and silver legislation across these 50 United States is literally not to try and topple a CDBC or anything else of that matter. It's to make sure that other people have an option for anonymous transactions and to literally not have to use a CDBC if they choose not to use it. It's a choice. That's what it is. And it's a constitutional choice, which is the best part of it. So this is why states are going forward with this stuff, gang. I mean, I got all this stuff printed out. I mean, I did this with Ron's Basement. I forgot to put that in my email. I did a Ron's Basement video. That premiered this morning. We covered some of this stuff with the states. This is really important stuff, gang. And it makes it all the worse, basically when you're fighting in the state of Missouri and you see things go through so quickly and so easily in Arkansas, in Tennessee last year, Mississippi. It just, bam, and both sides vote yes on it and it goes right through. It's not a big deal. While in Missouri, we have Peter Meredith standing up, hogging up all the time on the floor, talking about Nazi gold. We didn't see that in Tennessee. We didn't see that in Arkansas. We didn't see that in Mississippi. We saw the Democrats vote for having gold and silver. So our problems are not necessarily gold and silver. We have spitting contests happening between, certain factions of the government in the state of Missouri. And it's too bad because apparently it's gotten to the point where some people in both parties are willing to deny us our constitutional rights in order to have their spitting contest. And that is what we should not put up with anymore, gang. That is what we as the people of Missouri need to say, no more. No more. No more spitting contests. No more letting Democrats get on the floor and talk about Nazi gold. No more of that nonsense. Let's talk about the bill. Let's talk about the bill. Let's by the way, that means the bill may be perfected, and that's okay. Not every, Senator Eigel and Representative Hardwick can't have all the good ideas. There might be another good idea out there that we didn't think of. So, and that's fine too. But the fact is, if we're going to relegate ourselves to letting Democrats have an hour of basically filibuster time in the House, it wasn't a filibuster, but basically it was, one Democrat after another, after another, after another, talking about Nazi gold, Confederate gold, MAGA gold, zombie apocalypse silver. Silly, time-wasting elements like this make us lose faith in our state government. And John Patterson, the floor leader, let it happen at the behest of Dean Plocher. This is the nonsense we as Missourians must stand up to. And the nonsense that's going on, even with IP reform, is something we need to stand up to. Okay, I'm going to take a break. Does anyone have anything they want to say? So I can get off the soapbox.
How do we stop them from doing that, though?
That's a good question. I think it would be literally citizens. Gretchen, that is a profound question, actually. I think we as citizens need to actually go into Patterson's office at some point and say no more. No more. Don't do that. The people of Missouri want this bill. What say you? What do you tell the citizens when you only allow Democrats to get up and talk about Nazi gold in front of the entire world? That nonsense that went on for an hour. Now, Patterson, if you don't know much about Missouri politics, you blame Patterson for that. But I think most of us who are in the know that he was under orders from Plocher or being pressured by Plocher. So is one of the two, because they were using that as leverage to try and get a bill through in the Senate that had to do with sports betting. And as someone was recently telling me, sports betting was attached to getting rid of personal property taxes. So they made it very complicated there in the Senate. But that's my understanding of it. So it may not be perfect, but I do believe that's probably what happened last year. But the fact is, it was pure politics. It was leverage. So what really amazes me is how many people in the General Assembly don't understand they could be wearing the red cape if they would let a bill like this go through, if they would help it go through, if they would co-sponsor it, if they would speak to it and actually get it done honest to God, if anyone's watching from the Missouri General Assembly, 19 states are doing that so far this year. And that's just so far. We may not have caught all of them yet. Last year, it was 23. It's probably that many this year as well. But, you know, this is a constitutional measure. This is actually something that doesn't take a lot of time to debate and perfect, but it should go up for debate and perfection. Just no more talk about Nazi gold. Don't let Peter Meredith get up. In fact, if you guys look at Senator Eigel's version of the bill, SB 735, they now have the Meredith Amendment incorporated into the bill, which means that Nazi gold will not be considered legal tender in the state of Missouri. That's commonly referred to as the Meredith Amendment. So probably put in there to make sure he doesn't get on the floor and waste a bunch of time in 2024 the way he did in 2023, regaling us with stories of Nazi gold. So this is the nonsense we deal with in our state sometimes. So that, and I'm going to check for some more questions here. Don't want to forget about you guys. Still seeing nothing on Odyssey. I'll do a refresh just in case Odyssey's being strange again. Nope. We have 3 watching on Odyssey, but no questions. Okay. I'm going to Rumble now. Legiscan is a hood tool. I'm always entering keyword searches for elections because they are so corrupt in every state. I understand that. And also, too, when you're looking for gold and silver legislation, it's not like they'll actually let you scan all 50 states at once for a keyword. So that sucks, too. Wilderness says, for those of you who have never testified at the Capitol in support of a bill, my husband and Doug did for the very first time here in Missouri, and it was very easy. Doug, you're with me right now. Would you like to talk about your experience testifying in front of a committee?
Sure. It's not difficult at all. They may ask you some questions, but just remember, they work for you. If you get up there and testify, do not allow them to intimidate you if they try. I mean, none of them tried it with me, but I could see how maybe some people might get intimidated speaking to them, but they work for you.
Right.
Don't ever forget, they work for you, and treat them as such.
I agree. And that's a great way of looking at it. I don't recall, anyone getting any questions when we were talking about gold and silver at the last committee hearing. Do you recall anyone getting questioned?
No, me and Bratton talked a little bit after I testified about, problems of not having it, but, the gold and silver as legal tender. But he didn't really ask me questions. It was more statements on his part.
Yep. And he was, of course, thanking you for your service.
Yeah.
So I remember that quite well, as a matter of fact. And that was Bratton who did that. Guys, I've testified. I'm trying to remember now. No less than, gosh darn it, guys, maybe a dozen times. I think that's probably more than a dozen. I don't even remember all of them anymore. I used to be really, really nervous to go up and do that. And once again, these are senators or representatives you're giving a testimony to. But what I do is I just try to stick to what the original topic was, even if I go off of script, because I will type up what I'm going to say. And I generally don't even look at it. I have it there as a fail-safe and, actually go off of memory for the most part. But the fact is, gang, for people to testify to a silver and gold bill is actually really easy. We have a lot of threats coming our way. One's already here, inflation. And those who are holding on to gold and silver are enjoying the fact that their silver and gold is going up in value, countering inflation. Or it's not even countering inflation. It keeps its purchasing power, no matter what the dollar does. And it's over time, of course. It's not instantaneous. But also, too, the threat of a digital dollar and everything that's happening in China right now, that should scare us. Yet that's where the Federal Reserve wants to go. They've talked about this openly. And so I think, basically as Missourians, I think we should be doing everything we can to protect ourselves. And in order to do a law, we have to go through the General Assembly. And when the General Assembly is doing spitting contests, between Republicans and Republicans and Republicans and Democrats, basically it can get really tough to get things done. But it does show you how much more mature the Arkansas legislature is than the Missouri legislators. And I'm not talking about necessarily as a group. I'm just talking about the pissing contest that happens, basically when Dean Plocker, who must have his way, he'll burn the house down if he can't have his way, which is exactly what he did last year. And so, that's a problem. Now, Dean Plocker keeps telling us how much he wants IRP reform done, and for the last 4 years, it's been his top priority. But he only started telling us this literally, I believe, in December of 2023. He says the last 4 years, it's been his top priority. Well, he certainly hasn't shown it, and he hasn't said it. So can we trust him? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, if Dean Plocker is the sole person stopping gold and silver, then we should have a word with him. We should talk to him about that. If Jonathan Patterson is somehow involved and doesn't want gold and silver. Once again, we're talking about powerful people in the Missouri legislature that may take unilateral action to actually make a decision for 6 million other people without listening to the General Assembly, the very people they work with to make laws. That's a problem in Missouri. We may or may not have that problem in the Senate with Caleb Rowden and Cindy O'Loughlin as well. More so with Caleb Rowden, I think. I think Cindy, in many times, is kind of caught in the middle on certain things. In fact, I don't see Caleb Rowden manning up and taking care of business in the Senate. He gives it all to Cindy all the time. He's pro tem. He could step in at any time, but no, he'll just let Cindy tear her hair out on the Senate floor while he sits back. So, yeah, am I a little upset about this stuff? Yeah, we need to get some important stuff done in Missouri, but unfortunately, we have people that are making decisions for 6 million people unilaterally. 4 people making decisions for everyone in the entire state. That doesn't sound like a constitutional republic anymore at that point. That sounds more like a tyranny of sorts. Okay, so let me check on YouTube here for comments. Let's see. Truth Faction. Hey, Pat, this is Vince on Republic. We have years together. Yes, I remember you, Vince, particularly from Travis's meeting. By the way, Travis's meeting on the 25th. I want to say a little something about Travis real quick and the Prepared Homestead. And for those of you who are not following right now, this man is doing some really earth-shaking, mind-blowing stuff in his community. I don't want to say a whole lot about it, but because Travis speaks to this a whole lot better than I ever could for Travis. I don't speak for Travis at all. We're very good friends, and we certainly collaborate. But in this particular instance, this is his project. And what he's doing is forming partnerships that, quite frankly, are unbelievable. Partnerships with the public school, partnerships with the fire department, partnerships with the sheriff's department, partnerships with the county commission. Now, I know that's a mouthful, and hopefully I didn't get anything wrong, and those are exactly correct. He is forming partnerships with these entities. But the first one knocked my socks off. Travis texted me on this and says, hey, buddy, we're forming a partnership with a public school. So I was very glad to talk to him shortly after that, because I was like, what on earth are you doing, Travis? What are you doing? Please, help me understand why that's a good thing. He informed me that the school district that he's in, a public school district, does not take federal money. That's pretty amazing. They take no federal money, none. And that goes back to COVID. Because of all the strings attached, they didn't want the money. They suffered through that entire process without federal money because they did not want to deal with the ramifications of the strings attached. That's pretty huge, gang. How many of our school districts across Missouri did that? I can't say that about mine. Mine tried to get every penny they could out of the federal government during COVID. Every penny that was available, either through the CARES Act, through, gosh darn it, what was that one? ESSER funds and grants. They were constantly trying to gobble up more money from the federal government. And the strings that were attached is what caused parents to become upset with our school district in the first place. So the ramifications of this were that people started to lose faith in the school district because they took money and had to literally follow guidelines set up by the strings attached to the federal funds. This is happening all around the state of Missouri. Indeed, this is happening all over the country. Many people are very upset with their school district because of the strings attached to the monies they accepted from the federal government. To make matters worse, the schools are insatiable. They never have enough money. They constantly want more. And a lot of people are tired of their property taxes and personal property taxes constantly going up, and in the school not rolling back the levy, as they should. Some schools do, by the way, so I don't want to put every school in this category, but roll back the levy when there is an increase from the county. So, and this would lessen your property taxes. This is something that schools often don't do. They just want more money, more money, more money, more money. They don't care what the ramifications are or the strings. They just want more money, more programs. And by the way, they're not really concerned about grades or performance, because what they're interested in doing is putting in basically psychology services within the schools. It seems to be a very big one in 2024. They want woke company psychologists in your schools talking to your kids, probably without your permission. So that's the argument I had ready for Travis. I was ready for it, gang. My wife has been doing this for quite some time now, and I felt I was ready to say, hey, Travis, here's why that's not a good idea. And then he smacked me across the face with, our school district doesn't take federal funds at all. So I was bowled over. Suddenly I didn't have an argument for him anymore. I'd like to hear that they're out of the MSBA, and I think they're working in that direction, according to what Travis is talking about. But once again, I don't want to put words in Travis's mouth, but why partnerships with all of these local government entities? That's a good question. But what they're doing is they're forming basically a community within a community for everything the community needs, including bartering. Yes, bartering. Well, that's exactly what you're doing with gold and silver, technically anyway. If you want to mince words, bartering. I think the prepared homestead, homesteading itself is an art, and some people would say it's a science. I say it's more of an art. I think a lot of people can achieve a lot of great things in very different ways. And sometimes they're not exactly like someone else's, but it's just as effective. And that's my opinion. And I'm about a half homesteader, by the way. For those of you who have never been to my house, I'm about halfway there. So I'm a partial homesteader. But what Travis is doing in his community, because of the work my wife and I have done with the school district, I don't think we could ever get done in ours. I don't think it's possible. There's people in the community that don't really like the fact that my wife and I shut down these unnecessary school bonds on the ballot. So, Travis is a much more likable person than I am, though. So he's got that going for him, too. But amazing stuff that Travis with the Prepared Homestead is doing. If you are not keyed in to what Travis is doing, please consider subbing to his YouTube channel. He is listed down below in the description section on whatever platform you're on, with the exception of Twitter. But it is the Prepared Homestead on YouTube. He is listed as a partner with the Missouri Freedom Initiative. So he has got permanent link status on all of our videos. And I want you guys to check out what he's doing there, even if you're in another state. It's pretty impressive stuff he's getting done, and he's explaining it all, too. Emergency response teams, emergency preparedness, that's a big one that he's working on in his community. That is really, really increasing the reach and the effectiveness and the speed at which someone who may need emergency medical attention gets it, because you have, qualified people that are much closer than perhaps the ambulance. That's coming out of, and that's a very rural area. An ambulance coming from 30 miles away is going to take 30 minutes to get there at best. And so, but someone may be closer that can perform CPR. Someone may be closer who's on the fire department. Someone's close, so basically setting up a situation where when there's an emergency, the person who's closest can get there the quickest, does so. That's what I'm envisioning he's doing with part of this. And by the way, I'm not even scratching the surface of what Travis is doing. So please do pay attention to the Prepared Homestead. And he's got some really, really awesome stuff going on. And I will be at the meeting on the 25th, by the way. That's the next Prepared Homestead meeting. That's next Sunday, not tomorrow, but the following Sunday. And it is I have under authority that the guitarist from Slave to Servant may be there. And there's the album that we've been listening to when we start our live streams. By the way, since I've been playing this album, YouTube's been leaving me alone. They're not hitting me up with all these copyright warnings, which is kind of interesting. So that's kind of nice too. I don't like getting those. It doesn't really hurt the channel or anything. But so at any rate, I wanted to give a shout out to Travis and how impressed I am, and with what he's doing. Basically setting up a local community, preparing for anything. It could be anything from a tornado to a complete collapse of the U.S. dollar, and they'd be ready for all of it. That's how cool what Travis is doing is. And it's not a county commission doing it. It's not a sheriff doing it. It's Travis. Travis has got the lead for this because Travis knows what he's doing. So, and he's figuring it out if he doesn't know. And so that's what's beautiful about it, is Travis can help teach other communities do the same thing that he's doing as well. Okay, gang. Let me see if there's any more comments here. Thank you for your comment, Truth Faction. That reminded me to talk about Travis's projects. Let's see. Let's see. Can you imagine the look on Yellen's face if the majority of states passed such an amendment? Yes, I can, as a matter of fact. That came from Maria28 on YouTube. Let's see. Mad Mom's with us. Mad Mom's in the house. Hey there, Mad Mom. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. This is from LSF Prepper. I just started stacking silver, so I'd love to see Missouri go back to a gold standard. Well, actually, technically, just if anyone has any confusion about the bill in the state of Missouri, the dollar remains. It's just gold and silver will ride right alongside the dollar. So it's like any other country. You go to Canada, you can use Canadian dollars or U.S. dollars, and there's a different price listed on the shelf for each currency for that product. And the same thing is true. I mean, when my wife and I went down to Jamaica, we went down there twice. It's been a long time ago. But we ventured off the resort and actually went to a local grocery store and noticed that on the shelf they had two prices, the Jamaican dollar and the American dollar. And they also insisted on the store that if you pay with American dollars, you do get a discount. You are paying significantly less than Jamaican dollars. And that happened to be absolutely 100% true. So let's see. Truth Faction says, patent your land. I'm not going to get into that on the live stream tonight. We're talking about a loyal title. And that's very precarious to try to actually to get through, because there's systems trying to stop you from doing that. Okay, does anyone have anything they would like to add or like to say? Okay, all righty. Well, I'll tell you what, we're just over an hour and 10 minutes. And I'll tell you what, I think I covered pretty much everything I truly wanted to cover in this live stream. Does anyone have any questions about states' legislation, about any of the states that I had listed off, or the bills that they have, or the difference in bills, or anything about CDBC's anti-CDBC legislation in the states? By the way, I like the idea. I want you guys to understand. I need to get some water. Hang on. I like the idea of anti-CDBC legislation, but I'm not sure how far a state can take that, because the federal government can and does actually determine what is legal tender for all 50 states. Now, states can by themselves add to that. So Missouri can add silver and gold, even though it's in the Constitution, even though the federal government is supposed to be following the Constitution. But remember now, it's the federal government that demonetized gold and demonetized silver.
if you want a good education about CBDCs, Catherine Austin Fitz at Solari.com is really good to get up to speed.
I agree, Gretchen. Catherine Austin Fitz is a legend in the gold and silver community, an absolute legend. And also, not only that, her claim to fame is she found out about basically a second balance sheet that the Federal Reserve was holding. And believe it or not, I was actually able to watch a live presentation from Janet Yellen. Let's see. Trying to remember the year. It was probably 2017. And this is back when she was running the Fed, before she was Treasury Secretary. And she was asked about a second balance sheet during a live press conference that I was watching live. And she simply said to the reporter, I'll be very happy to talk to you after the press corps is done. That's all she said to him. She didn't answer the question, but she had a chance to dispel the rumor that there was a second balance sheet. Well, it's because of a university professor in Pennsylvania and Catherine Austin Fitz, we even have knowledge of the Fed's second balance sheet. In the last I heard, Catherine Austin, I've not heard her talk about it in a long time, but I've not been following her very closely in the last 2 years, particularly because of silver and gold legislation. But just because I'm busy is what I meant by that. She was talking about, she was thinking it was $23 trillion on the second Fed balance sheet. So $23 trillion. 23 trillion. And she came up with this number with a university professor. I believe it was out of Pennsylvania. It may have been Ohio, but I think Pennsylvania. And they worked this project together for a couple of years. And it was her first Solaris report that she released, I believe, in 2017. Talks about this. You can purchase these books from her direct. And it's not really a novel. It's more of a technical manual of basically how the federal government, basically absconds with money. And she's very big into catching this kind of stuff. Let's see. Tyranny is the exact term. Let's see. Gretchen. Oh, hang on. That's from a while ago. Let's see.
Two balance sheets on any other business would be prison time.
Yep. That's right. But the Federal Reserve gets to make up the rules as they go. Okay. Let's see. Mental health is a huge deal, partly because COVID has caused huge damage to students, such huge damage to students. That is absolutely correct. That the damage done to society with COVID, with shutdowns, with people losing their jobs, and believe it or not, that hurts people. Now, I'm not just talking about financially. I'm talking about psychologically, emotionally. When they're, your employer's looking at them and saying, I'm really, truly sorry. I want to keep the business open. I want to keep you as an employee. You do a great job, but I have to let you go because the government tells me I have to shut down. And that leaves, in fact, people should still be mad about that. Even though that was, what was that? Technically 4 years ago, maybe. But they should still be mad. They should still be mad 20 years after that happened, until everyone that actually was participating on a state or local level that actually shut down towns, that told, businesses they had to close up, told schools they had to close up. Remember, guys, and I don't want to, and we're on YouTube, so I'm going to be careful what I say here. I shouldn't have to be because, it's YouTube and I don't really care, but the fact of the matter is, they told us when COVID came out that it was 4% mortality. Do you guys remember that? 4% mortality rate. So 4 people out of 100 that catch COVID will die. It turned out to be significantly smaller than that. Way, way, way smaller. It looked that big at first when they were putting elderly people in retirement homes and putting them on the iron lung. They were putting them on respirators. They were killing them on respirators. They put people in the hospital and put them on remdesivir, killing them by shutting down their organs. So the fact of the matter is there was a lot of death, in the beginning of COVID until people caught on to how the hospitals were killing people with medications. in how the nursing homes and hospitals were killing people with respirators. By the way, someone who has medical could correct me on this, but I think this is the statistic. For people who go on respirators, only 20% survive. So someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's a pretty accurate number. It may even be worse than that, actually. I've heard some people say as high as 90%. 90% die that are put on a respirator. So, in other words, if they put you on a respirator, because you're having problems breathing, there's a 90% chance you will die from just being on the respirator. I'm not sure how they can justify that. That does not seem like, let's just say, that's not the risk ratio. I think doesn't call for this. I mean, the risk benefit. Go ahead.
The reason they'll put people on respirators, not with COVID, but on just a normal person that they're trying. It's a last ditch effort when you put somebody on a respirator.
Okay, gotcha. Well,
okay, so yeah, you may only save 10%, and I don't know the exact number, but you're on the verge of dying at that point.
Okay.
So it's kind of a Hail Mary pass.
And they want it to be very temporary.
Mm-hmm.
Before COVID, when you were put on a respirator, it was simply to get you stabilized, really. I think,
yeah.
I know they put my mom on one. This was sometime before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally just to get her to the point where she could do it on her own. And as soon as they thought that she could breathe on her own, they took her off of it. They weaned her off of it as quickly as they could, within about 24 hours. And she was okay. Mm-hmm. She managed, but that was my personal experience with it.
Yep. I'm sure you've heard about the nursing homes in New York, and what happened there. It was a massive die-off of people.
Well, they were getting $40,000 for each person they put on.
That's correct. I didn't, and once again, I'm not sure how far I want to go into that, because YouTube takes that personally when we talk about stuff like that. But that I do remember something like $40,000 or $45,000 for everyone who died on a respirator. That's essentially what I was referring to. And also anyone who went into a hospital that had COVID, it was something like $15,000 for the diagnosis. So 15.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact number on the diagnosis, but I know it was right in that ballpark. But it was $40,000 if they went on a respirator.
Okay, gotcha. All right. But at any rate, I think my point is everyone needs to stay angry about all that stuff that happened during COVID. When they told us, and this can be looked up online, they told us a 4% mortality rate. That they scared the crap out of everybody. That's how they got everyone to submit right away on COVID, a 4% mortality rate. That's what they promised. And it seemed to me that that's what they were delivering with Remdesivir and the iron lung, probably trying to make it look that way anyway. So, all right, gang. Well, I'll tell you what, I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. So for Maya and Doug, do you guys have anything you want to bring up?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay, gotcha. Do you guys think you're going to make it for the hearing on the 27th?
I don't know. I'll have to look at that.
Okay, gotcha. It'd be wonderful.
See if anybody else has off that day or not.
Okay. It'd be absolutely wonderful if you guys could make it up there.
We will be there on the 11th, so.
Okay.
So I've already got that taken care of.
Excellent. Good deal. Okay. All right. Well, I'll ask Gretchen then. Anything else she wants to bring up or chat about?
No, I think we've had a nice conversation.
Okay. All right. Voodoo Queen, anything you'd like to bring up tonight?
No, I watched Ron's Basement, so most of that was already repeat for me.
Yep. I'm sorry about that. Yes, I did do Ron's Basement. I forgot to put that in my email today, and I regret that. I'll put it in my next email for sure, so that everyone can watch it on Ron's Basement if they want. And I did make a promise that anytime I do anything public, I would let the group know. And at some point, it just, it's, as Voodoo had just said, it becomes redundant at some point. But at any rate, I think you guys got the schedule on the email. So the 25th, and once again, that's next Sunday, not tomorrow, but the following Sunday. That's Travis's Prepared Homestead Monthly Meeting. On the 26th, I'll be going up to Jackson County. That'll be up in, I believe that's Lee Summit. I'll be going to the Republican Central Committee meeting, and I'll be speaking there, actually, from 6 until 7 p.m. And then on the 27th, we have our House hearing, for HB 1955. That's Representative Bill Hardwick's Silver and Gold Bill, the Constitutional Money Act. And then on March 11th, we have Knock and Shock and the next Freedom Rally. So that's the calendar here for about the next month. So at any rate, everyone's got that in advance, and hopefully we can get a lot of people out there. It's time to get Silver and Gold going again, gang. And I know IP reform, and there's been some drama, in the General Assembly and everything. It's kind of stolen a little bit of thunder, and it's time for us to overcome that and let everyone know how awesome the Silver and Gold Bill is, and not just ours. Other states are doing some pretty cool stuff too, and that's a fact. So, alrighty, gang. And I'm going to check one more time for some comments. Let's see. Maya had put up information for how to reach the Solaris report. So that's in YouTube. So it's home.solari, SOLARI.com. And so that's how you can see Catherine Austin Fitz's work. So thank you for bringing her up, Gretchen. Actually, she's been a favorite of mine since, I'd say, 2015. She's done a lot of really impressive
I love
work.
that woman.
Yep.
Yeah, I love her.
And Rumble as well.
Okay, gotcha. And she does a lot with Greg Hunter, by the way. If you're a fan of Greg Hunter, you definitely know who Catherine Austin Fitz is. Let's see. Truth Faction, Aloydal is close to patent. Yep, Truth Faction will do that another day, though. That's a and by the way, I have talked to county officials and state officials, and this is far more complicated than most people get, and also I'm not even 100% sure it could be done. I think the first things first, we need to get rid of personal property taxes. Just get rid of personal property taxes, then we can start work on property taxes. We need to get rid of these things. Let's see. Wilderness Gal says, the hospitals were paid to do these protocols on COVID patients in support of the depopulation agenda, as Bill Gates had openly stated. I agree with that 100%. I think there's so much evidence of that anyone that says that's not true is literally willfully ignorant or blissfully stupid. Let's see. Rabid Coyote says, my wife was put on a respirator in December. She passed away on the 14th of December due to never recover. Let's see. Wouldn't have been intubated and fed tube permanently. I said no. Gotcha. Rabid, I am very, very sorry to hear that. I'm very sorry to hear that. Okay. All right, gang. I think I've caught up here, and I'm going to check Odyssey one more time. Nope, still 3 folks watching on Odyssey, but no one typing anything in. We have the majority of viewers on Twitter and on Rumble tonight. So I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight, and thank you for listening in to what other states are doing about gold and silver as well. And this will be the last time I will take up a weekend to actually talk about other states' legislation specifically. However, I deem this as very important. If you guys remember, I was doing this last year. This legislation that's coming out from other states is vitally important to their states, just as Missouri's SB 735 or HB 1955 are to us here in Missouri. But Other states don't have a group like the Missouri Freedom Initiative that's making all this information readily available to the people in the state to look at their state legislation. So we hope that people within the Missouri Freedom Initiative, and we do have some viewers from out of state too, can actually take this information and make sure that people in those states actually have access to it so they can start spreading the word, particularly on social media. Remember, the best way, the absolute best way to actually influence a legislator is to have a face-to-face conversation. Nothing else makes up for that. That is the single best way. However, if you're not driving to your capital to talk to your legislator, and if you don't want to meet with them, whether in the home district, during the weekends or what have you, the next best thing is a phone call or a handwritten letter. Those are pretty much equal in the eyes of most legislators. So talking to them on the phone or writing a handwritten letter. So anyone can do that. If you don't want to meet with them, you can do one of that. And then after that, the lowest on the totem pole usually, unfortunately, is the email. They still read the emails. It's just not as impactful as looking you in the eye and hearing it from you, or hearing your voice telling them what you want them to do. So that's the pecking order, gang. So people in other states, if you want these bills to go through in your states, you have to start something. You have to literally get legislators excited about the idea, and usually having a bunch of people show up at your capital and doing the equivalent of a knock and shock is fundamentally the best way to let legislators know that you want that legislation passed. There are other ways too, but we have found that to be incredibly, incredibly successful, for us here in the state of Missouri, at least for getting the attention of the bill, making it popular. So please do, and it's once again 19 states, Missouri's one, so if you take away Missouri, there's 18 other states running legislation. We're not even sure that's all the states yet. We'll know probably within about 2 weeks. But guys, this is incredibly important. If you believe in health insurance, if you believe in life insurance, if you believe in having auto insurance, basically, well, some of these are unconstitutional. Most of them are, actually. But the fact is, the whole idea behind insurance is because you don't know what's coming next, and that way you're covered for an eventuality, right? Having gold and silver as legal tender in your state is simply insurance for a dollar collapse, for inflation, basically for totalitarianism, for even... Go ahead.
This would be insurance for what you know is coming, though.
Yep, that's correct. I would say that as well. But a lot of people, unfortunately, still think, the dollar's not that bad. It's going to rebound. It's going to get better. It's going to recover. No, folks, it's not. It's not. It is the time for the dollar to die. And there's lots of evidence around this if you follow the BRICS nations, BRICS. So that stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And there are many, many more states that have signed on to the BRICS, including Saudi Arabia. And that's a big one because now Saudi Arabia is taking all kinds of currency for oil. Now, the whole idea behind Saudi Arabia, it was the petrodollar. That's OPEC. And that was done by Henry Kissinger. The idea was all oil in the world had to be traded on the dollar. And that was headed up by Saudi Arabia. What do we give Saudi Arabia in return? We gave them military assistance if they ever needed it, and protection if they were attacked. And so what we got in return was the dollar was used for trading oil. It made the Saudis rich. It made oil companies rich. It made the U.S. government rich. And it provided a purpose for our dollar, a very big purpose, an absolute necessity outside of the United States of America. Well, gang, about 1/2 of the world's population is technically in the BRICS nations now, and they are getting off the dollar. When that actually starts picking up steam, you will feel it right here in the United States in the form of inflation, because dollars that are no longer needed overseas will become flooding back into the United States because they won't need it anymore for oil or for, whatever. That's the fear right there, is that when those countries officially state we're not using the dollar anymore, They're weaning themselves off. We talked about weaning off of, intubators. The fact is, a lot of countries are weaning themselves off the dollar right now, and they know they have to do it because the dollar is inflating and it's hurting their economy too. And they have to print extra currency units in their currency to keep up with the dollar because they have dollar-denominated debt in their country. So they have to print their currency just like we're printing the dollar. Everyone's hurting because the dollar's being overprinted. So
Iraq stopped using the dollar on December 31st,
okay.
2023.
Okay.
After we dumped how many trillions of dollars into the country?
That's right. Yep. So, yep. And in fact, Saudi Arabia accepting a whole basket of currencies now is definitely going to be hurting the dollar as well. That'll also affect the price of oil. So we need to just produce our own oil in this nation at this point if we want to stay in America. If your plan is to exit the United States, God love you, because I actually know people who have that plan. And that sounds really, really intense right now. That probably sounds like an exaggeration. That is no exaggeration. I actually know people who have a plan to leave the United States. They're going to go into the Caribbean and, Bermuda, the Canary Islands. They have plans, basically to go into the Caribbean. And that's where they think it will be safe. But I'm telling you, if you take money with you, you will not be safe. If you take, whatever the U.S. is using as currency with you, you will not be safe. So it's something to consider too. All right, gang, I didn't mean to belabor the point on that, but I really do appreciate all of you joining us tonight. Please support legislation in your state if you have it for gold and silver. And if you don't have legislation in your state, why not get it started? Print out a copy of Missouri's HB 1955 that's sponsored by Representative Bill Hardwick. Print out a copy of it, bring it to your state senator, bring it to your state rep, and ask them to actually file the same bill in your state. And it's getting late in the legislative season for most states to actually introduce new legislation, but you understand the idea. The idea here is these states actually get something done. So if you're in one of these states that we read off tonight, please participate in the process. Please be a part of the solution by interacting with your representation and letting them know what the citizenry wants. What does the citizenry want? Sound money. That's what they want. They don't want their money inflating anymore. They don't want the constant threat looming over their head like a Damocles of a central bank digital currency that will take away even more of their freedoms. Indeed, totally destroying their freedom from what we're seeing in China. This is up to us. We decide what is currency, not the federal government. This is why in the states you have to support this stuff. You have to, because the federal government will never do this. I know that there was a bill recently in the federal government to make gold and silver somehow back the dollar again. It'll never go through, folks. Never, never. It is not in the interest of the federal government or the Federal Reserve to do that. It benefits you and me, but it doesn't benefit the federal government. How many people make up the federal government? 600 people, 550 people make up the federal government. If this doesn't benefit them, it ain't going to happen, gang. Just like term limits. It benefits us. It doesn't benefit them. We never see term limits bills actually go through. Yes, they get introduced and then they die. Just like the back the dollar with gold and silver bills. They just die. They just never go through. The bankers control the federal government. So this is why. The bankers want and need the dollar. That is their product. And they can't just print gold and silver out of thin air like they can dollars. It's really simple math, gang. Again, I don't want to go on another diatribe. I just want to say thank you so much for following us this evening for approximately an hour and a half. I really do appreciate you spending that time with us because you have lots of choices of things you can do with your time. If you're in the state of Missouri, please remember a hearing, and that would be on the 27th of February, and that's for our silver and gold bill, sponsored by Representative Bill Hardwick. That'd be very important. If you can make that, that's very, very, very important. Please email me, patrick@mofree.org, if you intend to come and testify. And once again, I'm trying to get an idea of a number of people that are coming. That's all I'm trying to do here. But also we could coordinate, basically, so there's not a lot of overlap in between what people want to speak about. So let's take a look at that as well. But thank you again for spending your time with us. I want to thank the panel that's been with us tonight. Caleb was with us earlier. He's under the weather, but we've had Voodoo with us. We've had Shane. We've had Doc with us. And let's see, Gretchen, thank you for being with us. And, of course, Doug and Maya, who are on the phone. So we don't have an avatar for them. So we really appreciate every time they come on. So, again, I want to say, guys, this is really important stuff. Let's get these silver and gold bills across the finish line, no matter what state you're in. If you've got this bill, work towards it. It's important. It's not just important for your state. It's important for you personally. It's important for all the people of your state. And it doesn't matter what color you are, what flag you fly outside your house. It doesn't matter if you're left or right or center. It doesn't even matter, male, female. It doesn't matter. Gold and silver is money. It doesn't matter, who you are. It's money to everybody. And it's not only our money, it's also God's money. And that's something that I think we can work with, especially since the federal government can't print it out of nowhere, print it out of nothing. So let's work towards that goal. You guys have an awesome, awesome weekend. And we'll look forward to catching you next Saturday night for the live stream. Look for an email before that. And once again, thank you for joining us. May God bless all of us with good health and also with wisdom. You take care, gang.